So I have a complicated relationship with haunted houses. And by haunted houses, I don't mean real spooky ghost-infested houses that are abandoned and void of human contact that some teenagers would visit in some sort of generic horror movie. But I mean those fake-ass haunted houses that you'll find at a carnival amusement park, or according to this documentary, a bunch of people's very own backyards. At least in America anyway. I don't really think that that's a thing that's happening in the old land of Oz. I don't think that's really a thing that's happening over here, but hey, maybe. How the hell would I know? Anyway, but I have a complicated relationship with these things because one, aesthetically, they are awesome, right? They are just so damn cool. These sorts of haunted houses and stuff are often also associated with some of my favorite horror movies, and that is really cool. There's a lot to like here, but for two, I know they're fake, right? That's kind of the point. Like, I know that I'm not in any real danger going there, you know, that's like a very important aspect to these. But three, they still scare the crap out of me anyway, and that is something that I ultimately hate about haunted houses like these, because I end up feeling embarrassed and stupid, and I don't have a ton of fun knowing that I'm also, you know, kind of a bigger guy. I'm the tall guy, and the bigger, the taller the guy, the more intimidating he looks physically, the funnier it is when he gets scared. And so when I do go to these sorts of places, I also get targeted. So yay, how good is that? And for four of the reasons why I don't enjoy these types of places, I don't enjoy getting scared at all, really. I mean, I love roller coasters, and as you know, as my reputation is, I also love horror movies, but they don't really scare me, not in the traditional sense anyway, not like in the real life feeling situations like you get in these sorts of horror mazes / haunted house experiences. Being put in a real life situation, you know, where people are really jumping out at you and everything, that just ups the stakes for me, and I don't like it. Though the majority of these places, the scare actors are instructed to not touch you, for me, it still feels intimidating. With every corner, you know that a jump scare is coming your way, and it's all in the hands of somebody else as well. I'm not in control, and I don't like that. And with all that comes another fact about this, where it all feels very mean-spirited to me as well. All of this combined, though, makes me feel like I physically cannot continue when I go to these sorts of places. Ironically, though, at these sorts of places, you also have the autonomy to go at your own pace. You know, you kind of have to walk through them yourself, which is both good and bad, because you can slow down and you can stop. But the more you slow down, the more you're just going to elongate the experience, and everything's going to be that much more scary for you until you eventually find the exit, which I'm not a fan of that. I'll take like a ghost train where it just goes in and out 45 seconds or so, it's not up to me, over having to walk through the horrors any freaking day. I'm a massive wimp. I don't know if you know that. I know I talk about horror movies quite a lot on this channel, but when it comes to these sorts of things, I'm a massive wimp. And this is all what I felt back in 2017 on my honeymoon in America at Universal Studios at one of their Halloween Horror Night events. That year, I believe, the mazes revolved around some of my very favorite media, including Happy Death Day and freaking Saw. I went through the Saw maze, and it ended up being the only one that I could do for the night, because I was petrified, to be honest, because although I loved the environmental work that was effective as hell at making you feel like you were literally walking through one of the movies, I just couldn't do the interactive stuff with the real people jumping and chasing and, for lack of a better word, haunting me. All in all, simply put, these places just aren't a huge appeal to me, but I'm fascinated by them nonetheless, and they forever intrigue me. This finally brings me to this documentary, Haunters, The Art of the Scare, which is a really interesting doco piece that takes a look at those who wish to scare and, to an extent, terrorize others. Some all in the name of good, fair fun, and others who, in my opinion, take it way, way, way too far. Spending a large chunk of their time and money committed to their craft, we get an inside look on the making of a few of the select haunted house attractions from around the USA at the time of filming back in 2017. And if I learned anything from this documentary, it's that I saw literally nothing when I went to Halloween Horror Nights compared to what others have seen in some of the more extreme haunted houses out there. And I'm super okay with that, just by the way. That's cool. I would like to keep it that way as well. No regrets, do not care about going to the more extreme ones. Anyway, so this is my second watch of this documentary after having seen it a few years ago. And the film itself is really well put together. It has good coverage and footage of its topics. It has a lot of fun moments, and it's got huge insight into a world I'm I'm largely unfamiliar with. It's not perfect though. By the midway point, it begins to get a little bit repetitive, and it's not the most informative piece either. It's a movie expecting its audience to already know the base level of these sorts of places to begin with, which was fine for me, but I did have to pause it a bit to further explain some context to the people that I was watching this with, who were my parents, just by the way, who have absolutely no interest in the topic, but I do that to them sometimes and make them watch things. Anyway, basically put, Haunters is an extremely niche and nerdy film made about a very particular group of people, and probably also made for a very particular group of people as well. And it feels like a tight-knit community in that kind of way. These attractions and the desire to build and run them for yourself can only be driven by those who may or may not have a few loose screws. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but from what I see, you really need to want to do this if you're going to do it, if that makes any sense. This ain't no casual hobby for the normies. And with that comes an interesting cast of people who we get to see on the way, including a guy named Donald Jolson, who is this extremely passionate guy who just wants to make a living creating spooky stuff. But I get the sense that this guy was having a bit of a hard time during the filming because there's some conflict with his wife, who clearly disapproves with all the time and money being spent doing this, as he's become in between jobs where he used to work on the production of actual Hollywood movies. Wanting to continue creating for the past few years, he's dedicated months upon months and thousands of dollars building up his parents' house to resemble a haunted house every year, with legitimate horror construction and prosthetic, all to sell a horror experience. For literally only 4 hours of the year though. He only opens this up for one day a year, Halloween day. That's it. He works for months and months and months and spends all this money on it just to open up one day a year. Like, dude, open up for all of freaking October or whatever. What the hell are you doing, man? I just feel like that's not a huge payoff, you know, for all the effort that you're doing right now. I feel like it's a bit of a waste. Very little payoff. But that's the thing about this documentary. It's a telling of just how in on this lifestyle these people can be. And Donald here is someone who we just kind of want to see succeed, even if we don't share that same intense passion for the craft of hauntings. This is just one of the many interesting people that we see throughout this documentary though. We see a few others who are scare actors with talking head interviews. We hear a few anecdotes by thrill seekers who have braved some of the more extreme ones. And for an hour and a half, we basically just get to hear a bunch of different perspectives on what these haunted houses mean to different people. There's such a strong love for them. People have nostalgia for them. People travel the country to go to particular ones just to get a chance of attending them. And we also see that some people are a little or way too into them. Nothing touches the extremities or obsessiveness quite like my main man Russ McKamey though, who runs the most infamous of all the haunted houses, simply named McKamey Manor. McKamey Manor is another one of these haunted house experiences, but it's not quite like the ones we've seen before. It's something that I just simply will never ever understand the appeal of whatsoever. And I don't get either side. I don't know how or why you could run something like this with such glee as this guy Russ does. And I don't know why or how you could desire to go through it as a visitor to begin with. McKamey Manor is known for being the most extreme haunted house out there in the world. It's all supposedly legal, it's all vicious, and it's all apparently free. The guy running it just asked for some dog food donations to the Greyhound Fund for some reason. It's kind of weird because the dude could be making bank off of this, like all of the people who are supposedly attracted to this place and go like each year. You'd think that he would charge quite a lot for this experience, but no, apparently not. Anyway, within the walls of McKamey Manor, visitors will experience a number of horrible things. From being waterboarded and nearly drowned, to being roughly shoved into coffins for minutes on end, to having bugs and spiders and scorpions tossed onto your face, to having your own vomit crammed back into your mouth, to being disorientated, abused and assaulted, and any other number of things, all while being vocally tormented and intimidated by a team of actors who are also filming your every move. Russ will then edit your experience and put it up online for the world to see. And he focuses on this heavily, by the way, telling us in the documentary that he probably wouldn't even bother doing any of this if he couldn't film it. Everything in his mind is supposedly for the sake of the footage, which he seems to mull over 24/7, editing it down and enjoying his own sick creations. And it's here where I have to say that I just don't think that McKamey Manor is right at all. I just don't understand how it's even legal. But at the same time though, the people that enter it must know what they're doing, right? They must know what they're getting themselves into. It's not like that'd be unfamiliar, you know? If you know you know. I'm sure they've seen the videos. I'm sure that was part of the reason why they decided to do it to begin with. They've surely seen the footage. They surely understand to some extent as to what they're getting themselves into. And they even have to sign waivers and all that kind of stuff just to get in. They even tell us in the doc that they have to have mental checks before letting anybody proceed, which I find ironic because I think you have to be kind of insane to want to do it in the first place. But hey, I don't know. Some people do, I guess. I think some people just want to prove that they're tough enough, I guess. I think they just like, they see it and they're like, yeah, I could do that. I guess the people who are attracted to something like this are the people who have like seen it all before and have been to a lot of other haunted houses, and now that tamer stuff doesn't do it for them anymore. And with each escalation, I guess you eventually find yourself at somewhere like McKamey Manor. I don't know, I'm not in that mentality, and I don't think I ever will be. You know, I know I won't ever be going to a place like this, and I'm absolutely fine with that. Call me a wimp all you want, cool. Don't give a shit. That's fine. That's all good. I absolutely don't need to prove myself to anyone. This stuff is messed up. And this place is so messed up that they're somehow even allowed to not have a safe word for their visitors as well. They don't get to just skip on out as they please. They are totally and entirely in the hands of their, I'll say it, captors. But don't worry, because Russ says they're a family business who have morals and values, and I think he truly believes that he is a good guy. For instance, he doesn't approve of swearing and is abhorrently against letting their haunt get sexual in any way whatsoever as well, which I'm honestly weirdly inclined to believe, but somehow I find that disturbing as well. Everything about this guy is just so dodgy, and I don't trust a word that he says. I find it disturbing that he's somehow morally okay with what he does and then disapproves of other things. Like, he's not okay with swearing, he's not okay with like certain conservative things like that, and it's like, what kind of fucking business do you think you're running, dude? Like, he's doing one of the most fucked up things, and then he'll be like, but you can't do this other thing. Like, it's just kind of weird. The hypocrisy feels harsh. It's like it's as if he is the one that has to draw the line between what is and isn't okay. And most disturbingly, the guy is also charismatic in a certain way too. He smiles politely. He apparently has a side gig as a wedding singer, which the movie cleverly compares with footage of him literally torturing people. Like, at the same time, they show a side by side. I love that part. But in the end, Russ McKamey, I have to say, is definitely a personality, presenting himself respectfully as he complains about people who want to stop him doing what he does by shrugging them off as simple haters. There's something about the guy that is endlessly fascinating. And although I just can't approve of his establishment, and as much as I don't trust him for a second, and like I said, he's dodgy as hell and creeps me out, I do though have to admit that I like to watch him go about his way and talk casually about what he does. I honestly believe that he is a psychopath, like a full-fledged psychopath, like an actual one, a clinical, you know, actually psychopath, who's found a way to legally feed his desire. I just know that somebody at McKamey Manor one day is going to get killed at some point, whether accidentally or not. And as the documentary itself comments on, when that happens, it's going to ruin it for everybody else. All of the other people who are in it for the right reasons, all the people who aren't doing anything wrong and not taking things too far. See, for as much as I don't personally enjoy going to these haunted house places, I weirdly have a strong admiration for them. The ones who play fair, the ones who are doing it just all in good fun, and the ones who will let people out who can't handle it as they please, and the ones who don't seem like they might fucking kill somebody. I respect those people. McKamey Manor, not so much. What I found most interesting though in this documentary is that even those other haunters don't respect McKamey Manor either. They don't look up to it as something to aspire to, they just think it's gone too far as well. And I thought that it was cool that it showed both sides. Another element to the passionate people behind these types of places that I found interesting but vaguely concerning as well is that a lot of people get into the game to blow off steam. A lot of the scare actors describe what they do as somewhat of an addiction. Taunting and prodding their willing victims is somewhat of a high, as we see that outside of the haunting realm, the people here are all just normal people with boring everyday jobs. Halloween and horror houses are, as they've described, the time and place where they can truly be themselves and free. Some people come off as totally harmless and are clearly just major geeks for the scene, which was borderline adorable. Others Others though seem a little too into it. This one guy who worked on another one that was similar to McKamey Manor called Blackout describes his experience scaring people as almost sexual, like he gets off on it. And at that point, I'm like, all right, dude, it's about time to get off that ride. You know what I mean? And those are the people that I think really need to take a step back. But I think there's a fine line between the people who have an unhealthy relationship with the haunt and those who I think are in it for the right reasons. There's a difference between dressing up like a goblin and jump scaring people as opposed to wanting to traumatize and borderline physically injure them. Haunters, the Art of the Scare is a huge recommend if the topic sounds interesting to you. I know it's a pretty minuscule film that pretty much nobody's ever heard of. It never got a wide release, never had mass appeal, but for those interested in the grim and macabre subculture that it takes a compellingly in-depth deep dive into, then I think you're in for a good time. It's not like I watch a lot of documentaries, to be honest, but I love this one enough to watch it twice, so I think that's saying something. As much as I'm sickened by McKamey Manor and other houses like it, I still feel like I'm drawn to the actual film itself, and I find it fascinating seeing why people go into these sorts of situations. And the film itself has this unapologetic passion for the subject matter, as it focuses on the creative processes behind the spooks and scares. It's shot well, and I love the positive narrative it was trying to push for the haunted houses, and it wasn't afraid to show all kinds of perspectives on them either. I think Haunters is a much watch for anyone who is seeking a horror-based documentary, and is one that will probably interest just about anybody who even has a vague slight interest on the topic. I would say definitely check it out, even if you maybe don't give a shit about him, because it's an interesting peek into a world that you may not know. That's what I thought of it as. And so yeah, that's about all I have to say. Thank you for watching this one, and please do the things, which are like, comment, share, subscribe, all that shit. And yeah, I'm gonna go. Bye.